He's a close personal friend of mine, so I know him in a different way than maybe a lot of people do. I don't read a lot of the press, to tell you the truth. When he comes to the racetrack, he's here to do business and win and beat everybody, and he's got his game face on, and people who don't know him in a personal way might think that he's cold and hard and ruthless or whatever they say. I don't know. But that's really not true. It's what you got to do to win races year after year after year.
It was another thing that everybody talked about was your ability to zero in and focus and block things out, which people, you know, you weren't the coziest guy to cozy up to at the track. But that's just how you worked.
Yeah, but as we just went through, I mean, I was there to focus and to do a job, and I can't get cozy with guys that I'm there to kill on the racetrack, you know, and move out of the way if I have to, or run into them. You know, that's just not me. You know, I don't care for acquaintances. I have friends or I have enemies, and there ain't nothing in the middle. So, and I can't be too friendly with guys that I need to you know,
to crush.
Yeah, to do whatever I need to do to beat. You know, so that just doesn't work for me. Never has. That's just the way that I am. So you know, I'm either a friend or I'm an enemy, and anything in between is just a big waste of time, if you ask me.
Yeah, we were teammates, you know, but you know, we were both really focused on what we were doing at the time. I mean, we didn't really, you know, didn't really become friends or hang out or anything like that, you know, like you do with some folks. But you know, we definitely, I never really caught much flack from him, or you know, had to put up with some of the stuff that some guys do, you know, from Matt. But
he can be a good guy. He can be a complete asshole at times, most of the time with me, but it was because what it was between us, you know, and that's what made it. Wasn't just the racing on the track that made it, you know, special. It was how we got along most of the time and how we didn't get along, and but you know, we were the first to congratulate each other.
He's a tough guy to get to know, but I think if anybody who kind of wandered through the paddock and bumps into him on occasions actually knew Matt, he's a laid-back guy. He's got a great sense of humor, but when he's at the track, it's 100% business. And when the job's done at the end of the weekend, maybe he's a little bit different person, but he's a competitor at the very top level.
How he can flip it from being, you know, real close and personal, you know, joking around, to flipping it on, and this is their job, this is what we do, and it's game time.
The most interesting thing to me is that the guy was the total warrior. So he was just not racing you on the racetrack. He was racing you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year long. I'm convinced that a word never came out of his mouth without a calculated effect.
We're talking to John Ulrich and asking him to reflect on your racing career. And he brought up the subject of the mental aspect of the game. That, and many people will say that racing is more up here between the ears than it is between the tire and the pavement and the throttle. And that you were very much a student of that mental game and applied mental strategies to your opponents.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because I agree. I mean, racing's between the ears. There's a lot of good motorbike riders out there, and I could sit here and name a number of them. There's a couple that I raced this year that I just, and you know, and I like the guy, so I will say his name. I think he's a good guy, Ben Bostrom. There's a guy there that lives a completely different lifestyle to me, 100%, but that's a guy there that I feel, if he really got his shit together 10 years ago, can ride a motorbike fantastically well and could have won a lot. I mean, here's a guy that went on a 6 or 8 win streak in World Superbike, you know, back in the day when he was over there. And, you know, and to me, he's obviously happy doing what he's doing, But to me, if you're there to race and you're there to get the most out of it, then do whatever it takes to get the most out of it. And then if you're finished with it, then move on and go and do something else. So, you know, there's so many guys out there that I feel that if they could have mentally got with the program, Matt Mladin wouldn't have won as much as what he won. So, you know what I mean? Of course, I'm happy that I've won a bunch of races and all the rest of it, but you said it right at the start. It's between the ears. It's up here that the big difference is up there. And you know, I remember being in races with Ben, even with Ben, and I know Ben's a good athlete and trained hard and worked hard. But I remember being in races with Ben, and it was hot. Virginia last year, where they disqualified us in the end anyway, or Atlanta, or where it was hot. 2/3 of the way through the race, and it's miserable, hard work, absolutely wide open, going as hard as I can and thinking, man, I'd just love to pull in right now. And then you're just like, but I know that if I'm hurting this bad, he's got to be hurting more, so just push hard, go hard, and you know that in the end you're going to break that rubber band, you know what I mean? And a lot of times with Ben it happened. You watch a lot of races on tape, you can, you know, you see it a lot of times, push, and you just, I seen that pit board going out, +1, +1.2, 1.3, 1.5, 2, 2.5. By the time you got up to 4 seconds or so with Ben, a lot of the times it'd go ting, it'd go, and then just push and keep going, you know what I mean? That happened a lot with Ben. People may not want to admit that, but go back through and have a look at the tapes and see exactly what happened. And I knew that, you know, and he also had championship in the back of his brain, so he got to a point where he was a little bit too uncomfortable having to run that pace, and he decided to shut off. He's 3-time Superbike champion. That's why. I did that before. So, you know, so it was pretty cool, you know, and yeah, so many things go on in racing, man, up here that and there's so many people that could do a lot better if they figured it out. They really could. There's a lot of good motorbike riders out there, you know, a lot of good motorbike riders, but not a lot of people get it together completely.
He'll admit to you that he wasn't maybe the most naturally gifted in things, but you're exactly right. He just put in the time.
No offense to him, but I would say raw talent-wise, just raw talent. There's a lot of guys that have a lot more raw talent, but they're not students. And they're not technical minded, and they don't sit down and analyze every little detail and have a plan and execute it on how to go fast.
How do you feel about your talent level compared to other people, say Ben Spies?
No,
and
listen,
Rossi
I think talent's very overrated.
Yeah?
Yeah, full stop.
I'm overrating it right there.
I think talent's overrated,
Okay.
yeah. But I think talent can take you so far, and you can be the most talented guy in the universe. You ain't going nowhere without hard work and without getting it together between the ears, as we're just talking about. So, and I've seen that happen a lot. You'll see some flashes of brilliance with talented people that, you know, just you're like, whoa, unbelievable. But as far as actually doing anything of any significance over a long period of time, talent doesn't mean a single thing. Doesn't mean a single thing. You got to have talent. You got to know how to ride a motorbike. Don't get me wrong. But but we're talking, you know, the difference between 2 and 3/10 of a second here that makes the difference between, and also ran to a champion.
Right.
So talent in that case doesn't mean anything.
At what point did your, I call it becoming a student of the game, the thing that's up here. At what point in your career, by the time you had come to America, do you feel like your technical aspect had reached your talent level and begun to carry your talent level forward?
No.
When do you think that happened?
I think it took me until my late 20s to really figure out a bunch of different things. Understanding the motorcycle better, and Amar Bazaz helped me with that a lot, coming from a non-motorcycle background. Having a master's in applied mathematics, he looked at things very different to the way the traditional motorcycle riders look at things, and crew chiefs, that sort of stuff. He helped me a lot in that department. He had no idea about a motorbike, don't get me wrong. A motorbike was just, to him, was just a bunch of numbers, and together he helped me a lot, and I helped him understand the other side of it as well, the racing side of it. So he helped me out a lot. And then at that same time, I really started understanding about, you really need to be in, the fitter you are, the better you're going to do. Even whether that's the difference between 7th place and 5th place, or being able to 2/3 of the way through a really hot race, just trying to drain the life out of people and ride away from the front. The better condition you're in, the better you're going to do. And that all really started coming together for me up here in the late 90s, 10 years ago. So, you know, mid-20s to sort of late 20s. That's when I really started figuring it out.
The fitness thing brings up another point here. You had won your 3 championships, the first 3 in the what I call the 1000cc era.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ben won the championship in 2006. And when you showed up in 2007, you were the leanest, meanest guy that I had seen. I mean, it seemed like you dropped at least 20 pounds between the end and the beginning.
Mm.
Did you get fat, dumb, and happy in those first 3 years, and then Ben woke you up, and then you refocused?
There's not many years where I came into the series in exactly the same condition as I did the year before, because that's one side of things when I believe that I somewhat got it together in the late 90s, that I enjoyed experimenting with. And on the racetracks here in America, they're a bit different to Europe on average. They're a little bit slower average speed. They're not as open, not as wide open, not as fast, not as many big straights. To me, it takes a different body style to be consistently fast in America than it would be to race a Grand Prix bike in Europe, for instance. So I played with it a lot. Sometimes I worked out in the gym a lot, and I tried different things with what I was doing, and then talking about getting back over in 2007, early 2008, you know, I was slim. I was 163 pounds. I haven't been 163 pounds since I was 15 years old or 16 years old, but at that point, you know, I don't believe that was the best for me to race a 1000cc 200 plus horsepower superbike around some of these racetracks in America. I don't believe it was. So, you know, all these guys that are, you know, trying to be light and trying to be this, it all depends on what you're trying to do. Some of those midgets that race in Europe in Grand Prix, you put them on a superbike over here in America at Infineon, they'll last about 5 laps and they'll be done. They'll be done. They ain't keeping up with Ben Spies or Matt Mladin on some of these racetracks over here on a 200 plus horsepower superbike. I'm not talking about a road bike like we raced this year. I'm talking about a superbike that actually had a bit of grunt, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of those guys, they'll fall off the bandwagon in about 5 seconds flat. Actually, as far as I'm concerned, there's only one guy over there that could come over here and be competitive. So
who's that?
Rossi.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is it that you see in him?
Oh, I don't know. He's just He's just the man, you know, that's it.
Yeah.
Yep. He's too good for those guys. Way too good. Yep.
Well, that segues into another aspect of it. Earlier this year, you talked about the '08 bike that you guys bought was crated in a warehouse somewhere, and you brought it up to speed, so to speak. And you said that the bike was getting back to the brick that you were used to.
Yeah.
And the work of muscling that super bike to bend it to your will and make it do what you want to do. Is that what you're talking about in terms of,
totally.
Of getting it around Infineon?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it got to a point. I mean, Infineon, we raced the new bike. It was it the first race of the new bike up there?
Yeah.
But anyway, the first half a dozen races of the year were on the '08 bike, and we started getting it feeling a little bit like the old Superbike, except from a power standpoint. I mean, they were as weak as piss, these bikes this year. They really, as I've said to Bob about his Harley, they wouldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding. Or as Reg would say, wouldn't pull a greasy axle out of a dog's ass. But they were the bikes this year. But from a chassis standpoint, we got it feeling okay, you know. So yeah, you know, it wasn't a Superbike though. Right. I mean, you can't pull the brakes on these current bikes like I could pull the brakes on that Superbike. Not even close. I feel like you're going to snap the front end off.
So you had some braking power in there that you couldn't fully tap because the chassis just wouldn't take it this year?
I mean, again, when we're talking braking deep and compared to not being able to brake deep, we're talking, we're not talking 10 yards or, but over the course of a race,
right,
with 15 corners per lap, that tiny little bit extra feel and that little bit more stiffness in the front, can mean a couple of tenths a lap or whatever it might mean, which means over the course of a 30-lap race is, 5 seconds. So it big difference,
yeah.
Huge difference.
Or zero. Well, depending on whether you're mapping or doing data here. Yeah, my answer right.
You did data for Matt Mladin. How long were you the data? What are you? Is it data engineer?
That's a little bit glorified.
Oh,
Just
okay.
yeah, data technician. I mean, I don't know. There's
data dude.
There's not really a proper
term
proper name for us, but
okay. I'll call him the data god.
My car, the car you flew.
2003 was the first year of the 1000s
Yes.
inline four superbikes.
Exactly.
That's when you came in and picked it up.
Exactly.
We were talking a bit before off camera, and you were talking about the data can tell you lots of things, but sometimes you got to go with the rider. Like Matt was saying, yeah, Herschel, have the computer ride the bike, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was there a specific time that you can remember when that happened?
Oh, there would have been several of them. Yeah. Well, you see something on the data, and you think that there's some time in it, or you think there's something to be gained, and it's not. It doesn't match with what the rider's feeling. I've seen some other data guys, and I think that my role with Matt has been a bit different than maybe data people with other riders.
Okay.
I see a lot of other data people, sort of coaching their riders. And that was one thing that Matt never needed. He never needed any coaching, and to be honest with you, I never felt qualified to attempt it. even with what, you know, with what motorcycle experience I did have.
Right.
He knew how to ride, and that was obvious. And so I never spent too much time critiquing his style. I'd simply try and look at his style and try and understand what that felt like, or what that meant. Why there, I mean, obviously you always want to be on the gas. So what's the reason he can't be on the gas? Or why does the throttle go flat there? He's waiting, and there's some uncomfortableness that explains that.
And it was your role to try and discover that for him.
Right.
Okay.
Basically, my role is to try and fill in the information between the comments.
Okay.
Or if you're lucky, try and pick up a potential problem or an advantage before you get the feedback.
Right.
Matt was pretty special. His feedback was phenomenal. There were some times when he'd have a comment before you could really even see it in the data, and eventually, you know, if the problem got worse, you'd eventually see it.
Right.
But yeah, and many a times, what his comments, you'd be able to see it exactly in the data, and he'd be spot on, and that would make my job, yeah, like I said, easy. I didn't have to go looking for it. I knew right where to go, what to look for.
There's a reason why you want to spin the rear wheel sometimes. That is to get the bike to turn better on the exit. Sometimes you don't want the rear wheel to spin, but sometimes you need it to spin. If you can't get the bike turned, you need to get a little bit more throttle into it and get it to spin, so you can get the thing turned off or turned, you know, on the exit. So I give you the scenario. So all of a sudden I start spinning the bike more than what I want to halfway through the race. So I go up one setting in the traction control, and the bike doesn't spin anymore. How am I going to get it turned now? So it's not that easy. It's a very, very hard thing to adjust correctly, and to have adjusted correctly for the whole race. And there's certain racetracks we go to now that we essentially turn it off because we're quicker with it off. So not that anybody would probably believe that, or anybody else does that now, because I can hear a lot of the bikes out there and how much traction control they're using, and sometimes I laugh thinking, you guys are slowing yourselves down now. So not easy thing to tune.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. You might get the wheelie control right for one section, but then have a bit too much in the other. And when you get it wrong, you're going backwards fast. And the other thing that used to amaze me is, like I was telling you before, the gap between closing the throttle and getting on the brakes. At 190 mile an hour, every lap, there's this split, there's a moment in time at 190 miles an hour where you realize, I need to go from wide open throttle in 6th gear, 190, I need to stop now. And you close the throttle and grab all the brakes, and by the time you've slowed yourself down, it's perfect time to tip in and hit the apex. Same spot every time. Yeah.
Machine.
Yeah.
He was consistent in what he did, lap after lap after lap, which made your job easier.
Yep, for sure. Yep. Yeah, phenomenal rider.
The true first word that would come to mind is champion. I mean, that's what are you going to say? The numbers don't lie.
Now, what did you do? You were integral in his first 3 championships, right?
You know, I played my part. It's a big team effort, but I mean, really, Matt was at the center of that, and that was, 10 years ago now. So yeah, I was involved. I was his crew chief in '99 and 2000, and Reggie was there, as he has been all these years, and we just went out and put our heads together, and as a team did the best we could, and really, I mean, the results, it all came together.
When we first got together with you a couple of years ago, you had started your Bazaaz Performance, and you had brought out the ECUs and the traction control systems, and you were bringing all that online. You said that it got tough a few times, like when you're trying to be an entrepreneur and you're starting to do some things that are as complicated as what you choose to do. You didn't start an ice cream stand, for crying out loud. And you said you drew some inspiration from him, that there were times when it was just like, and you just had to gird up and dig deep.
Absolutely. I mean, that, you know, in many ways, he's very inspirational to me. And in those tough moments, I'd stop and think back and say, okay, you know, in a racing situation when we weren't quite where we needed to be, and it was the last qualifying, the weight was on Matt's shoulders, and he would man up and just get it done. And I thought to myself, okay, what would Matt do in this situation? You know, would you go crawling away, or would you man up and get it done? And a lot of times that helped me get through some pretty dark and difficult times, for sure.
Elaborate more on Amar Bazaaz. I mean, he's
I can't elaborate too much because kids are watching this video. No, in all honesty, I don't know. Amar and I just hit it off really well. I mean, realistically, he first came into motorcycle racing around mid-1997 with the Yosh crew. I guess he applied for a job there or something. I don't know exactly. It's too long to remember the exact story. But first time he really ever seen me was in New Hampshire at the Mladin racetrack on a Ducati, and I won the race by about 3 laps. Wasn't that much, but it was just, I was gone. I was half a lap in front, and you know, popping wheelies and all that sort of stuff. So he seen that, and then he got into the racing scene not that long after that. I think with the Yoshimura guys, he applied for, maybe they were looking for a data guy or something, and he got into that side of it. And then I came back to Suzuki for the '98 season. Started just working, you know, with the crew chief and all that sort of stuff. Amar was still a data guy, and then halfway through the '98 season, I'm like, I really liked him, and I thought we could figure out a lot of stuff together, and that he could be really, really good for me and for my program. And I asked to have him as my crew chief for 1999. So, and he wasn't that sure about it at first. He was like, he didn't have the confidence in himself to be a crew chief, you know, as a normal crew chief. And so in the end I said, no, I want Bazaaz as my crew chief, so let's make it happen. So he got thrust into that job, and we just really just approached things a little bit differently to what I was used to, and to what most people are used to approach things with crew chiefs, you know. So just started to learn more about the bike and the way things worked and different things. So it was good. It was good relationship.
Yes, because his view, which is beginning to become the standard view now, is to approach it more from a mathematical physics point of view as to what all this is doing, and if you want more weight, you move this component versus some other component that everybody else was always moving before.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, there's, you know, to get into a really technical aspect side of it, I mean, it'd take a long time, but yeah, it was just to help keep everything together and to keep things organised from the racing side of things, and to understand if you did this is actually what happened, not on the racetrack, but to the actual bike, et cetera, et cetera. He certainly helped us go forward, that's for sure, helped me go forward.
So some riding technique stuff. You said in a speed interview at one point that you had to change your riding style to when after Ben won the championship in 2006, you came back in 2007, 2008, and you were changing your riding style a bit. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
To be honest with you, I'm not too sure. I mean, I didn't change my riding style. Maybe that came across different to what it was supposed to. I definitely didn't change my riding style though, not at all. I've always had the way that I've done, you know, I race a road race bike similar to a motocross bike. I just like to get it in deep and get it squared up and get it turned and get it off the corner as quick as possible.
As opposed to, say, corner speed.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Corner speed's no good to anybody. If someone's stuck in front of you and, you know, that doesn't have corner speed, what are you going to do with your corner speed? There's not much you can do with it, is it?
Yeah.
You're just going to ride off the racetrack, I suppose, I don't know. So, but if I outbrake somebody with any corner speed, and I decide I'm going to park into the middle of the corner, there ain't nothing they're going to do about it. They're not going to ride around the outside because I see someone on the outside is going to put them in the grass, right? So it's corner speed's completely overrated, 100%. So, yeah. I mean, look at Grand Prix. The guy with the least amount of corner speed's winning the World Championship and is a 7 or 8 time World Champion. That's Rossi. So Lorenzo and Pedrosa get around the corner quicker than Rossi. Just so happens he gets into it and off it better than they do.
One of those motocross techniques, and I didn't understand it until you told me. I had heard it many times, especially turn 11 at Laguna Seca. Your bike would go, and I was like, what? What? And
traction control.
Yeah, it's traction. You're doing the motocross thing where you slip the clutch to get the revs up so that it'll bite harder.
Yeah, to help get the revs up, but also traditional road racing methods for stopping wheelies or you know, for things like that. You know, I heard it from the time I started road racing. You know, yeah, if you over this hill when it wheelies, just stab the back brake a little bit. You know, and there is